guys, so it's me, Nicolette Mashile, and today I want to talk a little bit about responsible lending, right? So remember that none of my videos constitute as financial advice. If you're looking for financial advice, please do contact somebody who's registered with the FSCA. So anyway, the other day I'm having a conversation with my partner and we're talking a little bit about credit. I wanted to kind of suss him out to find out, you know, you don't want to marry these ones that are relying on skoloto. So I was just trying to suss him out to see what are his feelings, what are his opinions, what are his sentiments around credit, and how does he actually manage credit, only to find out, and to my shock, that he actually had a credit card while he was still a student. It was actually called the student credit card, although his limit was very, very low. I mean, 200 rand. I mean, maybe in that time it was a big deal. I think this is back in 2008. I'm sure it was a big deal in 2008, but really 200 rand is not really that much of a big deal anymore. But in any case, it led me then to think, that means that my little sister might potentially also be looking for credit. So I wanted to have a conversation with her about credit scores. And I thought, you know what, let me write her a letter. So I write Violette this letter and I'm explaining to her what credit scores are, how the credit bureaus work, what getting blacklisted actually means. And I send her this letter, and guess what this little girl says to me? She says, thanks, but I don't think I'll ever need credit. And I was like, okay. But in case you do, I'm just letting you know what I mean. But she also said something. She said she will never ever need a clothing account because her sister's a designer, obviously. I thought that, okay, that made kind of sense. But I remember then, to my experience, when I was still at Rhodes University, I went out and I got a clothing account. It was the easiest thing to do. Guys, literally, I walked into the shop. I was actually just browsing. These salespeople that are on the floor literally came and attacked me, and I'm calling it attack because they literally attacked me with a card that came with these vouchers and sales vouchers and all sorts of things. And I said to her, well, I don't work. And she said, you don't need to work. And I said, what do you mean? She said, you just need to have an income coming in from somewhere else. And I said, okay, well, I get pocket money. And then she was like, how much? And obviously I lied. I said, oh no, I get 1,000 rand. No, I never got on the 1,000 rand when I was varsity. Maybe once because I needed a textbook, but that wasn't really pocket money, right? So she's like, no, let me sign you up as long as your mother can vouch for the fact that they give you pocket money. So I'm like, shut, chilled, not a problem. So I fill out the form. I write my, who I am, my address at the university, a res address. I mean, really, a res address. And then I give them a friend's number because I'm not going to give them my mother's number. My mother doesn't want to know that I'm trying to get a clothing account when I'm still in varsity. So I give them a friend's number, and they call the next day. My friend confirms that I get 1,000 rand pocket money. She even throws in another line. She's like, yeah, she also gets like 500 rand extra every single month. And I'm like, yes, friend, you are the right type of friend that I need. So eventually I do get this card, and it's a party in my life because guess what? I go shopping and I max it out literally in the same day, literally in less than an hour, because my limit was 1,000 rand. So you can imagine how crazy I actually went, right? So anyway, it made me start thinking about responsible lending and just thinking, what are the responsibilities, one, of the banking sector, but also of us as individuals when we are desperately looking either for credit, for a clothing account, for a furniture shop account, and all these things that we do. And it led me to just think of some of the things that people are doing. And I always think about the story of how people somewhere in Hillbrow are actually falsifying their pay slips and their bank statements to show that they're earning more money than they're actually earning. And I'm like, isn't that really like cutting your nose to spite your face? Because at the end of the day, it's your ID that you are using, so you're going to get into trouble. Your credit record is going to get impaired. And then I just thought, wow, there are 24.7 million credit consumers in South Africa. Now that's a shitload. And this is a stat from 2017 Q1. That is a lot of people, guys, that are relying on credit, right? But number two, 39.9% of those have impaired credit records. So who is lending them money? That's what I want to understand. Who is lending them money? And how are they actually getting access to it? And while banks in this country are heavily regulated, right? Heavily regulated. I mean, South Africa has really tried, the NCR, the banking sector, banking have all tried to try and make as many regulations as possible so that people don't end up becoming victims of reckless lending and irresponsible lending. But the reality is that there's also a responsibility that we have as South Africans. Yes, I'm not saying that there aren't institutions that are still doing it. There are these micro lenders that are still doing it. There are unregistered micro lenders called Abo Mashonisa that are still working in our communities, that are still recklessly lending people money and irresponsibly lending people money. But also, what then is my responsibility? For instance, I lied. I told them I get 1,000 rand. I didn't even give them my mom's correct number, and I got that thing approved, right? Now, it just makes me ask myself, then what is my responsibility as a consumer to protect, one, myself first and foremost, but two, also my credit life and my credit profile? Because really, to have an impaired credit record just doesn't make sense, especially at a very young age, right? So I just thought, okay, so there's one thing that we need to be able to make sure people know, and that is to get people as wallet-wise as possible, especially around issues of responsible lending. So things like, number one, affordability, number two, also credit history. Guys, your credit history is going to count against you when you're going to look for credit elsewhere, especially if you're going to be irresponsible with it. So next time you walk into a credit lender, a micro lender, and they borrow you money that a normal bank would not borrow you, you must know that they're at some level, they are probably borrowing you money irresponsibly or lending you money irresponsibly. Okay, it's actually lending, all right? So they probably are lending you money irresponsibly, and it is at the end of the day and this is what makes me mad, because then people are like, yeah, I've been paying for so long and the balance is not going down, and I just want to sit there and say that's because you took a loan you probably could not afford, number one, but also because you probably took it from a company or a banking institution that didn't explain to you, and because you didn't understand either, there was no query made on this. So it's very important, guys, that we query everything that we're doing so that we don't find ourselves in a situation where we become victims of irresponsible lending, because at the end of the day, the institution will disappear or the institution will carry on doing business, and you are stuck trying to clear your credit score, your credit record, your credit score, and it might take a very long time for you to bounce back to the good space, the good space.